Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
President of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, has done an interview with io9gizmodo.com, and I want to cover a lot what she said in the interview, but specifically in this video, I want to talk about what she had to say about Colin Trevorrow leaving Star Wars Episode 9. He was the original director for Episode 9, but late in 2017, he departed from the franchise, and they brought J.J. Abrams in, and they delayed the film's release date from May 24th, I believe, of 2019 to December 19th or 20th of this year. I don't remember. I'm seeing it on the 18th, I think. But anyways, let's get into the questions that IO9 asked Kathleen Kennedy. They say, obviously J.J. Abrams wasn't the first director attached to this movie, so without spoiling anything, what was it about Colin Trevorrow's version that didn't work? And Kathleen Kennedy says, well, I wouldn't say it didn't work. Colin was at a huge disadvantage not having been a part of The Force Awakens and in part of those early conversations because we had a general sense of where the story was going. Like any development process, it was only in the development that we were looking at the first draft and realizing that it was perhaps heading in the direction that many of us didn't feel was quite where we wanted to go. And we were on a schedule, as we often are with these movies, and had to make a tough decision as to whether or not we thought we'd get there in the time or not. And as I said, Colin was at a disadvantage because he hadn't been immersed into everything that we had started out with Episode 7. So from the outside looking in, this seems like she's subtly saying that there is a ending and there is a story that they wanted in Episode 9 and a certain direction of the story that they wanted to go to that Colin wasn't going for with his draft of Episode 9. And I think there's a few drafts of Episode 9 that are out there. One of them, and we'll probably cover this in another video, but there's the Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly script that those two guys worked together on a lot of films together, and they had a script going. I don't think it was going too well, and so later on in the process they brought in Jack Thorne, who's a British writer, to work on the Star Wars Episode 9 script, and there's a script out there that was reported on, and we'll probably make a video about that later. But yeah, that obviously didn't go too well. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy and other people at Lucasfilm were entirely happy with the direction of the script. And I think what happened was Colin wasn't happy with Jack Thorne's story treatment either. And so they were having kind of created difficulty of where do we want the story to go. And if you remember that he was brought into Star Wars Episode 9 in late 2015, I want to say August if I recall correctly. And that's like right when The Force Awakens was about to be released. So it's clear that he wasn't brought into the discussion of Star Wars when they were getting ready to start this trilogy. And I know we all kind of can tell that they didn't plan this out specifically, movie by movie and draft by draft, but they had a story outline of where they wanted the film to go and where they wanted things to go in the story for the sequels. And it seems like he missed it. He missed the mark there. And it really comes down to, of course, the scheduling, the script, and getting it done in a timely fashion, which is really unfortunate. I think that's constantly been the thing that's brought down these films. The original trilogy and the prequel trilogy had a good 3-year gap between each of them. You had 1977, then 1980's Empire Strikes Back, then 1983's Return of the Jedi, 1999 you had The Phantom Menace, 3 years later Attack of the Clones, 3 years later on 2005 you had Revenge of the Sith. So you start a trilogy, 6 years later you finish it. That's a good time frame in my opinion. This one, we're kind of speeding through it. We have a 4-year gap, 4-year runtime of everything. The first one started in 2015 and it's 2019 and we're finishing it up. You're taking away 2 years of development and planning that I think could really have benefited the sequel trilogy. You could have used that extra time to bring in all 3 of the directors for the sequel trilogy and not just have JJ in on the story treatments for Episode 7 and then JJ and Ryan for Episode 8, but then realize, oh, we're not doing so well with Episode 9 on Colin, so let's bring JJ back. It's situations like this where you really look back in hindsight and say, man, what could have been with this trilogy? It could have been planned out a little better. It could have been executed a little better if you had just taken your time. And this isn't something you want to blame Lucasfilm on. This isn't their fault. They're just adhering to the schedule that is given to them by Disney. When Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, they immediately said, even before they were buying Star Wars, they had the planned dates of 2015, 2017, and 2019. So that was, in late 2011, early 2012, before they even got the franchise, that they were planning these release dates. And Lucas himself was kind of gearing up to start his own sequel trilogy, at least getting the ideas for it. So when you buy the franchise and you rush a film out, you rush an entire trilogy out, mistakes are going to happen. I mean, they really are. It's just mistakes are made. You have creative differences. This is part of filmmaking. This is natural in the filmmaking realm. But this is Star Wars. It's a little different. I do like the direction that they tried to go with, at least the decisions by Kathleen Kennedy and others at Lucasfilm, to actually have different directors in the seat of the sequel trilogy. It was supposed to be 3 different directors, J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and then Colin Trevorrow. I like that idea because that's exactly what happened in the original trilogy, and I think the strength of the original trilogy is that it wasn't just one man, George Lucas, writing and directing all 3 of them. You had a lot of collaboration with many creative minds that improved the ideas and the stories of the Star Wars franchise. I think if we would have done that with the prequels, I think we would have at least done it a little more executed on the sequels and not as rushed, we would have had a lot better films these past 6-7 films now. And it seems like the main thorn in the side of Lucasfilm when it came to producing and developing these new sequel films is the scripts and the schedule. I mean, you gotta remember when they let go of Colin in late 2017, that was, the original date was May. I mean, you had like a year and a half until the film's supposed to come out by that point. And it's like, well, shit, you gotta really hop on the board and get ready to get this film going and start development and production really soon. And so they had to bring J.J. Abrams in, delay the film by 8 months into December, and then he only had 2 years to make this film, and it's coming out this month. So it's rushed. I mean, yet again, it's rushed, and that's unfortunate because this is Star Wars. There's a delicacy to Star Wars of you got to do the story just right. You got to please the fans, but also do something new and innovative. There's a lot of problems that come to making a Star Wars film. And I think the big downfall of having Disney buy the franchise in 2012 and rush out the films is that we are missing some of the marks on the storytelling aspects that could have been there. I would not have minded having The Force Awakens coming out in 2015, 2018 we get The Last Jedi, and then 3 years later in 2021 we get The Rise of Skywalker Episode 9, if that would have meant we would have skipped to a more planned out trilogy that wasn't as rushed and could have let the story kind of develop in a better aspect. Maybe the films would have been worse, but I think that in the long run, it would have been better for the story. But that's just my opinion. I want to hear your thoughts below. What do you guys think about Colin Trevorrow leaving Star Wars Episode 9? Are you happy that it's not him and J.J. Abrams came back? Are you disappointed? What do you think about Kathleen Kennedy saying that he was kind of at a disadvantage for not being brought in for The Force Awakens earlier into development and story conversations? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. I'm Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see y'all next time, and may the Force be with you always.